Let me kick off today's explainer with a quick question. Have you ever made the incredibly painful yet totally common rookie mistake of trying to map every single process in an organization? Look, as a senior business analyst, I see junior BAs and career switchers do this all the time. You join a new company, you open up your modeling tool, and you try to document absolutely everything. I'm talking from how the CEO sets high-level strategy all the way down to how the intern refills the coffee machine in the break room. It feels like you're doing amazing, thorough work, but trust me, it's actually a trap. Doing this drains your limited resources, and let me tell you, it is never cost-effective. The hard truth is that very few organizations out there have the time, budget, or manpower required to model all their processes in detail. And honestly, even if those resources were somehow magically available, spending them this way is a massive waste. Business process management isn't free. Prioritization is absolutely essential for an organization's survival. Some processes simply have to take priority because they are strategically important. If you try to map everything, you end up improving absolutely nothing.
But hey, don't worry, because today we are going to turn that mistake into absolute mastery. By the end of this explainer, you're going to learn what I like to call the pragmatic playbook. I'll share the exact secrets for identifying, categorizing, and selecting the specific processes that actually drive real business value. You're going to stop being an order taker who maps the coffee machine and start being a strategic partner who fixes what really matters.
Here is our structural roadmap for today. We'll quickly tackle the biggest BA mistake, define process architecture, map relationships and levels, figure out how to select processes to improve, measure process performance, and finally, wrap up with our top 3 actionable takeaways. All right, let's jump straight into section 1, the biggest BA mistake.
To avoid getting bogged down in an absolute ocean of sticky notes and flowchart boxes, we have to filter out the noise first. The management team and you, the process analyst, have to answer 2 fundamental questions. What processes are actually executed, and which ones should we focus on? So before you even think about building an architecture, ask yourself this checklist. First, is it a process at all? Next, can it be controlled? Because if you can't control it, you definitely can't manage it. Third, is it important enough to manage? Think back to our coffee machine example. Is that important? Not really. Finally, check your scope. Is it not too big and not too small? You want to use these 5 criteria to relentlessly filter your list before you do anything else.
Moving right along to section 2, defining the process architecture.
Okay, so once you've filtered out the noise, you'll be left with a solid list of viable processes. But a simple list just isn't enough. We need to systematically categorize them, and we do this using Porter's value chain model. This brilliantly splits everything into 3 main buckets. Let's translate this using a food delivery app as an analogy. Your core processes are your money makers. This covers the essential value creation, things like procuring restaurant partners, marketing the app to users, and actually delivering the meals. Then you have your support processes. These keep the lights on and enable those core processes to function. For our app, this would be managing the personnel, maintaining the IT infrastructure, and handling the finances. And finally, management processes. These define the vision, develop the strategy, and manage risk. Essentially, they give direction to both the core and the support processes.
That brings us to section 3, mapping relationships and levels.
Now that we know our 3 main categories, we have to understand how these processes actually interact with each other out in the real world. Processes don't just live in a vacuum, right? There are 3 types of relationships you need to map out. Let's stick with our food delivery app metaphor. First up is sequence. This is your horizontal, logical, step-by-step relationship. For example, a customer places an order, the output of that process triggers the restaurant's prep process, which then directly triggers the delivery process. Second is decomposition. This is a vertical hierarchical relationship. It's when we take a high-level process, like the delivery process, and break it down into sub-processes, assigning a driver, picking up the food, and driving to the customer. Third is specialization. This happens when there are several variants of a generic process. So in our app, the generic delivery process might specialize into bicycle delivery for dense city centers and car delivery for the outer suburbs. A great way to think about mapping levels is to imagine using a city map on your phone. Level 1, right at the top of the pyramid, is your process landscape. This is your 30,000-foot view showing the overarching value chains of the entire company. It's like seeing the whole city layout and its main interstates. Level 2 drops down a bit into specific business processes. Now you're zooming in to see specific neighborhoods. Finally, level 3 zooms right down to street level. This is where you decompose those business processes into highly detailed subprocesses and tasks. And just as a pro tip, you'll generally use BPMN, or Business Process Model and Notation, which is the standard visual language for drawing these maps, mostly down at levels 2 and 3.
Let's dive into Section 4, Selecting Processes to Improve.
All right, so we've filtered our processes, categorized them, and mapped their relationships. Now we pivot to the million-dollar question for literally any business analyst. Out of all these beautifully mapped processes, which ones do we actually invest our limited time and money to fix first? Well, we assess them against 3 specific criteria. Strategic importance asks which processes have the greatest impact on our overall organizational strategy. Health asks which processes are currently in the deepest trouble. But here's the catch. You can't just pick a strategically important failing process and call it a day. You have to balance those with feasibility. How susceptible is this process to our BPM initiatives? Are there cultural or political obstacles standing in our way? Because if the company culture is violently opposed to changing a specific process, it might not be feasible to fix it right now, no matter how unhealthy it is. You really have to balance all 3 of these elements.
Section 5. Measuring process performance.
So how exactly do we determine a process's health? We definitely can't rely on gut feelings or just listening to whichever manager is yelling the loudest in the room. We have to quantify it. Let me give you a really concrete example straight from our source material. A restaurant was losing customers due to poor service, so they decided to focus heavily on the delivery of their meals. Now, they didn't just guess what was wrong. They gathered actual data. They found that half their customers wanted their meal in 15 minutes or less. But the crucial data point they uncovered was exactly 30 minutes. Hard data showed that a 30-minute wait time for a meal was universally unacceptable to all customers. Because they quantified this performance measure, they knew exactly how unhealthy their delivery process was, and they knew the exact benchmark they needed to hit to fix it. To get that kind of hard data for yourself, you need to measure across 4 critical performance dimensions. Basically, any company ideally wants to make its processes faster, cheaper, and better. Faster is the time dimension. This is where we measure cycle time, processing time, and waiting time, just like that restaurant wait time example. Cheaper is the cost dimension, looking closely at your fixed, variable, and labor costs. Better is the quality dimension, which includes external quality metrics like your customer churn rate or net promoter score. And finally, the 4th dimension is flexibility. This measures how well your process can adapt to changes at runtime or build time. Measure these 4 things and you'll know the exact health of any process.
And finally, Section 6, Top 3 Actionable Takeaways.
We have covered a ton of ground today, from avoiding those early rookie mistakes all the way to measuring cycle times. So let's distill everything down so you can immediately apply this pragmatic playbook to your day-to-day job. Here are your top 3 takeaways to ensure absolute mastery. Number 1, stop mapping everything. Seriously, be ruthless. Prioritize your work using that 5-point process checklist before you draw a single box. Number 2, categorize your process architecture systematically. Use Porter's value chain to separate your core, support, and management processes, and then map them out across the 3 hierarchical levels. Number 3, when it's finally time to improve a process, always select it based on a balance of strategic importance, health, and feasibility. I want to end this explainer by throwing a question your way to challenge your new understanding of these selection criteria. Imagine you find a process. The data proves it is highly inefficient, incredibly unhealthy, and perfectly feasible to fix without any cultural pushback. But it has almost 0 strategic importance to the organization. Would you still fix it? Drop your answers and your reasoning in the comments below. I honestly can't wait to read your thoughts on this one. Thanks so much for learning with me today, and I'll see you in the next one.